some places don't just hide secrets, they swallow you whole. Tonight, we venture into the dark, two stories of mystery and terror that will leave you questioning what lurks beyond the light. First, a man's desperate run through the Paris catacombs, captured on tape and never seen again. Then, Japan's Aokigahara forest, where the trees whisper of lost souls and something far darker. Welcome to Weird Wild Stories. Buckle up and don't look behind you. Beneath the vibrant streets of Paris lies a hidden world, a labyrinth of darkness and silence. The Paris catacombs, a sprawling network of tunnels stretching over 200 miles, hold the remains of more than 6 million souls. This is no ordinary cemetery. It's a place where history, mystery, and the macabre intertwine. Originally quarries mined for the limestone that built Paris, these tunnels were transformed in the late 18th century into an ossuary to address the city's overflowing cemeteries. But the catacombs are more than a resting place for bones. They're a maze of secrets, where urban explorers and thrill-seekers venture at their own risk, drawn by tales of lost souls and hidden chambers. The story of the Paris catacombs begins in the Middle Ages, when limestone was quarried from beneath the city to construct landmarks like Notre Dame and the Louvre. By the 17th century, these abandoned quarries posed a growing danger, with cave-ins threatening the city above. In the 1770s, Paris faced another crisis. Its cemeteries, like the Holy Innocents, were overflowing, creating health hazards. In 1785, authorities devised a grim solution: transfer the bones of millions to the old quarries. Night after night, workers moved skeletal remains in torchlit processions, stacking them into eerie, orderly walls. By 1810, the catacombs were not only a solution, but a spectacle, open to the public as a morbid curiosity, cementing their place in Parisian history. Only a small portion of the catacombs is open to the public. Beyond the guided tours lies a forbidden realm, where illegal explorers, known as cataphiles, navigate uncharted tunnels. Some never return. In the 1990s, a group of explorers discovered a hidden room filled with 19th century wine bottles and graffiti, hinting at secret gatherings. Stranger still are the stories of voices echoing in the dark or footsteps that stop when you do. Are these the restless dead, or just the mind playing tricks in the suffocating silence? The catacombs remain a paradox, a place of death that pulses with intrigue, drawing those who seek to uncover its deepest secrets. In the early 1990s, a group of cataphiles made a discovery that still haunts urban explorers. Deep in a forbidden section, they found a discarded video camera with footage inside. The tape showed a man, alone, running through the tunnels. His flashlight flickered, his breaths ragged as if something was chasing him. No one knows who he was. No name, no record. The footage, grainy and raw, captures his panic as he stumbles deeper into the maze. He mutters to himself, words drowned by echoes. Then, abruptly, he drops the camera. It rolls, lens catching only darkness and silence. The cataphiles searched but found no trace, no body, no belongings. The tunnels, some barely wide enough to crawl through, twist endlessly. Floods, cave-ins, and dead ends make rescue impossible. Experts estimate a lost explorer has days, maybe hours, before hypothermia or starvation sets in. Yet this man's fate remains a mystery. What drove him so deep? Some say he was a reckless adventurer, disoriented in the maze. Others point to darker possibilities, foul play by other cataphiles, or something supernatural. The catacombs are steeped in lore, whispers of restless spirits, bones that shift in the dark. On X, urban explorers swap stories of hearing footsteps where no one should be. Could the man have seen something? Or someone? We may never know. The footage shared online is all that remains, a chilling snapshot of a man lost forever in the dark. From the depths of Paris, we travel to Japan, to a forest where the dark holds its own secrets, a place of beauty, tragedy, and terror. Half a world away, at the foot of Japan's Mount Fuji, lies Aokigahara, the Sea of Trees. This dense forest, spanning 12 square miles, is a place of breathtaking beauty and profound sorrow. Known as Japan's self-exit forest, Aokigahara is a destination for those who feel they have nowhere else to go, and a place where the living tread lightly, wary of its heavy silence. The forest's volcanic soil, rich in magnetic iron, disrupts compasses, leaving wanderers disoriented. Locals say the spirits of the departed linger here, their presence felt in the unnatural stillness. Yet Aokigahara is also a place of compassion, where volunteers patrol, hoping to save lives. Aokigahara formed thousands of years ago, born from a volcanic eruption of Mount Fuji around 864 CE, which left behind a rugged landscape of lava rock and fertile soil. Its dense canopy and natural caves made it a place of spiritual significance in ancient times, tied to Shinto beliefs about nature's sacred power. By the 19th century, legends emerged of ubasude, a rumored practice where the elderly were abandoned in the forest during times of famine, their spirits said to haunt the trees. In the 20th century, Aokigahara's darker reputation grew, amplified by literature like Seicho Matsumoto's 1960 novel Kuroi Jukai, which portrayed it as a place of tragic endings. Today, it remains a complex symbol of beauty, loss, and cultural reflection. Aokigahara's mysteries are as deep as its shadows. Hikers report compasses spinning wildly, and some claim to hear cries carried on the wind, yurei, the spirits of the lost, according to folklore. Yet amidst the tragedy, there is hope. Each year, volunteers and police conduct sweeps, placing signs with messages of encouragement. Your life is precious. These efforts reflect Japan's growing focus on mental health, a quiet rebellion against the forest's grim legacy. Aokigahara is a place of contrasts, where despair meets resilience, where the living strive to honor the lost by saving others. Aokigahara's darker reputations stems from its association with self-exit, a topic we approach with respect. Japan's mental health challenges are real, and resources exist for those in need. But beyond this, Aokigahara harbors mysteries that defy explanation, vanishings, ghostly sightings, and an eerie presence that lingers. In 2018, a controversial video by a YouTuber brought Aokigahara to global attention, but locals have long whispered of strangeness. Hikers report compasses failing, as if the forest itself rejects navigation. Some find ribbons, markers left to avoid getting lost, torn or moved. Others hear voices or see yurei, ghostly spirits from Japanese folklore, drifting among the trees. One chilling case, in 2004, a hiker named Takao vanished while exploring Aokigahara. His car was found at the forest's edge, but searches uncovered nothing. Not a footprint, not a trace. Locals spoke of a pull in the forest, a force that lures people deeper. On X, a 2025 post claims a ranger heard Takao's voice calling years later from a spot already searched. What's behind these mysteries? Some blame the forest's geography. Caves and dense trees trap wanderers. Others suspect foul play, with rumors of robbers preying on lone hikers. But the paranormal looms large. Aokigahara's history ties to ubasude, an ancient practice of abandoning the elderly in forests, fueling tales of angry spirits. Paranormal researchers, like those from Japan's Occult Society, report electromagnetic anomalies, suggesting a thinning between worlds. The forest doesn't just claim bodies, it haunts minds. Survivors describe an oppressive silence, a feeling of being watched. In 2024, a documentary on Fuji TV reignited debate, with explorers claiming to capture whispers on EVP recordings. Whatever the truth, Aokigahara's darkness runs deep. The Paris catacombs and Aokigahara forest, two places where the dark hides more than answers. A man running from the unknown, a forest whispering of lost souls. Which story chilled you more?
Imagine stepping into a world 200 years ago where the familiar meets the downright bizarre. The 1820s, a time of scientific curiosity, bold ideas, and some practices so strange they sound like they belong in a fantasy novel. But these were real, believed by doctors, scientists, and everyday folks. Buckle up, because we're diving into a wild historical ride through beliefs and practices that will leave you stunned, amused, and maybe a little grossed out. Number 1. Let's start with something we all take for granted today: washing our hands. Picture this. You're in a hospital in 1825. Doctors are rushing from patient to patient, their hands stained from who knows what. Hand washing? That was considered more of a quirky ritual than a medical necessity. Hospitals back then were often death traps, where infections spread like wildfire. Doctors might perform an autopsy and then deliver a baby, without so much as a rinse. It wasn't until a Hungarian doctor named Ignaz Semmelweis in the 1840s connected dirty hands to deadly infections in Vienna's maternity wards. His solution? Soap and water. The result? Lives saved. But here's the kicker. His colleagues mocked him, refusing to believe they could be the problem. Poor Semmelweis faced resistance so fierce he ended up in a mental institution. Moral of the story? Clean hands save lives, but convincing people of that was a battle. Number 2. Now let's talk about graham crackers, those crunchy treats you love with s'mores. Their origin story is anything but indulgent. Meet Sylvester Graham, a 19th century preacher with a mission to save your soul through diet. Graham was part of the temperance movement, railing against alcohol, meat, spices, and even comfy mattresses, basically anything fun. He believed indulgence led to sin and sickness. His solution? The Graham diet, a bland regimen of fruits, veggies, and whole grains. Enter the graham cracker. Debuted in 1829, designed to be so boring it wouldn't tempt you into naughty thoughts. No sugar, no fat, no flavor. But here's the twist. Graham never patented it. By 1898, Nabisco turned his pious cracker into the sweet treat we know today. Bet Graham would have had a fit over that. Number 3. In the 1820s, phrenology was commonly practiced. It is a pseudoscience that claimed the shape of your head revealed your intelligence, personality, even your destiny. Picture a phrenologist running their hands over your skull, declaring, "This bump means you're destined for greatness." It sounds absurd now, but back then it was a high-class intellectual pursuit. The Edinburgh Phrenological Society, founded in 1820, spread the craze, and in America, lecturers drew crowds eager to have their heads read. The idea was that different brain regions controlled specific traits, and a bigger region meant a bigger bump on your skull. But here's the dark side. Phrenology was often used to justify prejudice, claiming certain groups were inferior based on head shape. By the 1840s, it fell out of favor, but its legacy lingered, reminding us how dangerous bad science can be. Number 4. If you were feeling under the weather in the 1820s, your doctor might reach for a knife or a jar of wriggling leeches. Bloodletting, an ancient practice rooted in the idea of balancing the body's humors, was the go-to cure for everything from fevers to headaches. The logic? Too much blood? Drain it. Leeches were especially popular. London's St. Thomas's Hospital used 50,000 of them in 1822 alone. Doctors even used tubes to guide leeches to specific spots. It sounds gruesome, but it was so common that even George Washington, America's first president, was bled during his final illness in 1799. Bloodletting faded by the late 19th century, but it's a wild reminder of how far medicine has come. Number 5. Now, let's venture to the edges of the earth, literally. In the 1820s, a man named John Cleves Sims Jr. had a bold idea. The Earth was hollow, with giant entrances at the North and South poles, leading to a hidden world inside. These Sims holes captured the public's imagination, even if scientists rolled their eyes. Sims toured America, lecturing about his theory, and even won over a few fans, including former President John Quincy Adams. He dreamed of a polar expedition to prove it, but never got the funding. When he died in 1829, his son honored him with a monument topped by a hollow globe. Today, we know the Earth is solid, but back then, this idea sparked wonder and debate. Number 6. For women in the 1820s, seeking medical help could be a nightmare. Hysteria was a catch-all diagnosis blamed on a wandering uterus. Ancient Greeks thought the uterus could float around, causing everything from anxiety to fainting. By the 19th century, doctors still used hysteria to explain any female health issue, often barring women from jobs or social roles because they were deemed too emotional. Treatments ranged from strange, smelling salts to scare the uterus back into place, to downright patronizing. Shockingly, hysteria stayed in medical books until the 1980s, a stark reminder of how gender bias shaped medicine. Number 7. In the 1820s, mesmerism was the hot new thing. Dr. Franz Mesmer claimed humans were full of magnetic fluid that could be manipulated to cure ailments. His sessions, often with wealthy women, were part medical, part mystical theater, with patients swooning or convulsing. Critics called it quackery, but its allure spread, reaching America by the late 1820s. Mesmerism laid the groundwork for modern hypnotism, proving that even wild ideas can spark real change. Number 8. Picture this. Scientists in the 1820s zapping dead frogs with electricity, watching their legs twitch as if alive. This was galvanism, inspired by Luigi Galvani's experiments. Some wondered if electricity could bring the dead back to life, but, of course, it couldn't. But these experiments, which inspired Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, led to breakthroughs in understanding electromagnetism, thanks to Hans Christian Ørsted's 1820 discovery. Science fiction met science fact, sparking a new era of discovery. Number 9. Picture a bustling Stone Age village 34,000 years ago. Families are meeting, not for love or romance, but to strike a deal. Marriage back then wasn't about candlelit dinners. It was a survival strategy. Researchers from the universities of Cambridge and Copenhagen, studying ancient Russian remains, suggest that early marriages were arranged to avoid inbreeding, ensuring healthier communities. Fast forward to the 19th and early 20th centuries, and arranged marriages were still the norm across many cultures. For most of history, marriage was less about love and more about producing heirs or sealing alliances. In some societies, polygamy or systems of concubines were standard, with men building legacies through strategic unions. Parents called the shots, often pairing young brides and grooms, sometimes shockingly young. In 1920s America, U.S. Census records show nearly 12% of girls aged 15 to 19 were married, a number that's dropped to about 6% today per the CDC. These unions shaped families and societies, but they often left little room for choice or romance. Imagine being a teenager, told your future was decided by your dad's handshake. Wild, right? Number 10. Now, let's step into a darker corner of history. The town square, where a crowd gathers, buzzing with anticipation. It's the early 1900s, and public executions are the main event. Back then, death was no stranger. Disease, infant mortality, and even dead animals in the streets were part of daily life. So perhaps it's no surprise that justice was served with a side of spectacle. In the U.S., around 15,000 people were executed over its history, often in front of massive crowds. The last public execution, in 1936 Kentucky, drew up to 20,000 spectators, partly because the sheriff overseeing it was a woman, an unheard-of role at the time. Headlines like "Ghostly Carnival Proceedings" Reed's hanging from Evansville, Indiana, turned the event into a media frenzy, pushing lawmakers to ban public executions. These grim gatherings remind us how justice could become a public stage for cruelty, a stark contrast to today's private legal processes. Number 11. Finally, let's visit a bustling 1900s city where the sound of clanging machinery mixes with the chatter of tiny voices. Children, some as young as 5, are hard at work. For centuries, kids were seen as future laborers and family support systems. By the early 20th century, as cities grew and industries boomed, child labor was everywhere. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics notes that kids toiled in fields, mines, and factories, doing everything from shucking oysters to weaving textiles to rolling cigars. In rural areas, they hauled coal or fished along coasts. In cities, they darted through streets as newsies, couriers, or cleaners. Imagine a child, barely tall enough to reach a machine, working 12-hour shifts in a smoky mill. It wasn't until the Fair Labor Standards Act of 1938 that the U.S. began regulating child labor, setting minimum ages and safer conditions. But back then, childhood often meant sweat and sacrifice, a far cry from the playgrounds and classrooms we associate with kids today. The 1800s were a time of wonder, weirdness, and wild ideas. From leeches to hollow earth, these strange practices remind us how far we've come, and how curiosity, even when it leads to dead ends, drives progress.
Imagine gathering around a crackling fire on a chilly autumn night, sharing tales that send shivers down your spine. Stories of poisoned treats, flesh-eating fish, and shadowy figures lurking in the woods. But what if I told you that the scariest part isn't the fiction? It's the fact that these legends are rooted in real events, often stranger and more twisted than the myths themselves. In this video, we dive deep into iconic spooky tales and uncover their bizarre true origins. Let's begin. Story 1. Our first tale takes us to the heart of Halloween paranoia, the fear that a neighbor might slip something deadly into your child's candy haul. This urban legend has parents worldwide inspecting sweets like detectives, but it all stems from one chilling real-life tragedy in 1974 Texas. On a foggy Halloween night, 8-year-old Timothy O'Brien went trick-or-treating with his family and friends. Later that evening, after enjoying a pixie sticks from his haul, Timothy fell violently ill and tragically passed away. Investigations revealed the candy had been laced with cyanide, not by a stranger, but by his own father, Ronald Clark O'Brien, who was drowning in debt and saw a twisted opportunity in life insurance payouts. Convicted of this heartbreaking crime, O'Brien earned the moniker the Candyman, forever changing how we view the holiday. While razor blades in apples remain pure myth, this single act of betrayal birthed a cautionary legend that's kept generations vigilant and perhaps a bit too fond of testing the chocolate themselves. Story 2. Now, let's swim into murkier waters with the myth of piranhas as ravenous monsters, stripping flesh from bones in seconds. Hollywood blockbusters like Piranha have painted these fish as underwater demons, but the story traces back to an unlikely source, a former U.S. president on a grand adventure. In 1913, Theodore Roosevelt embarked on an expedition through the Brazilian Amazon, eager to explore the untamed wilderness. Local guides, keen to impress the dignitary, cordoned off a section of river and starved a school of piranhas for days. Then, in a dramatic display, they tossed in a live cow. The frantic fish devoured it in a frenzy, leaving only bones bobbing to the surface. Roosevelt, awestruck, chronicled the event in his book, Through the Brazilian Wilderness, calling piranhas the embodiment of evil ferocity. In truth, Piranhas are mostly omnivores or even herbivores, only turning aggressive when desperate. Teddy's tale, amplified by movies and media, turned a staged spectacle into a lasting nightmare of the deep. Story 3, shifting from nature's oddities to celebrity scandals, we've all heard the wild rumor that stars like Marilyn Manson or Cher had ribs removed for, well, let's say unconventional reasons. This salacious gossip actually originated with a flamboyant Italian poet whose life was a whirlwind of excess and influence. Gabriele D'Annunzio, a daring aviator, writer, and seducer in the early 20th century, thrived on scandal. He spread tales about himself, cooking exotic meats, stealing art, and yes, allegedly having ribs surgically removed for self-indulgence. But D'Annunzio's real legacy? He pioneered elements of fascism. In 1919, he led a militia to seize the city of Fiume, creating a proto-fascist state that inspired Benito Mussolini. Even the infamous fascist salute drew from his ideas. The rib rumor, recycled for modern celebs, pales next to how this provocateur shaped history's darker chapters. Story 4. Deep in the Pine Barrens of New Jersey lurks the Jersey Devil, a winged, hooved beast said to haunt the forests. Folklore blames a cursed birth, but the creature's origins lie in colonial rivalries and a founding father's sharp wit. In the 1700s, Daniel Leeds published an almanac that clashed with Quaker beliefs, earning him the label Satan's Harbinger. His son Titan took over, only to feud with Benjamin Franklin, whose competing almanac jokingly predicted Titan's death and called him a ghost when he survived. Anti-British sentiment mocked the Leeds family crest as the Leeds Devil, which evolved into tales of a chimeric monster. A 20th century promoter revived the legend for publicity, turning political satire into New Jersey's most enduring cryptid and even inspiring a hockey team. Story 5. From earthly beasts to otherworldly ones, the conspiracy of Nazi UFOs fueled by mystical energy sounds like Pulp Fiction, yet it springs from a Victorian novel that sparked occult obsessions. In 1871, Edward Bulwer Lytton penned The Coming Race, a sci-fi story of an underground civilization powered by Vril, a life force enabling flight and wonders. Occult enthusiasts latched on, birthing tales of a Vril society aiding Nazis with alien tech for flying saucers. Though historians doubt the society's existence, the myth infiltrated games like Wolfenstein and even neo-Nazi lore, blending Victorian fantasy with wartime paranoia. Story 6. Beneath Scotland's misty Loch Ness hides Nessie, the elusive plesiosaur-like monster. Sightings span centuries, but the iconic image comes from a vengeful hoax. In 1934, the surgeon's photograph, a grainy shot of a long-necked creature, captured imaginations via the Daily Mail. But it was crafted by Marmaduke Wetherell, humiliated after fake footprints he found were debunked as hippo tracks. With his stepson, he built a model from a toy submarine and clay, snapping the photo as revenge against the tabloid. Confessed in 1994, this prank solidified Nessie's form in pop culture, proving hoaxes can outlive the truth. Story 7. The chilling urban legend of the babysitter and the man upstairs, where calls trace from inside the house, inspired films like When a Stranger Calls. Its roots, a heartbreaking, unsolved case from 1950 Missouri. 13-year-old Janet Chrisman was watching a young boy when she dialed police in panic, only for the line to go dead. Returning home, the family discovered a tragic scene. Prime suspect Robert Mueller, known for troubling behavior, called the family oddly soon after, but jurisdictional disputes let him slip away uncharged. Robert was the prime suspect due to a number of factors. He was a friend of the family for whom Jeanette was babysitting, the Romacks. He had been around the Romack house many times when Janet babysat, and Mr. Romack testified that Mr. Mueller often commented on Janet's well-developed body. Mrs. Romack stated that Mueller touched her suggestively 2 days before the murder. A mechanical pencil that matched puncture wounds found on Janet's body was known to be carried by Mueller. Despite the investigators' belief that he was the killer, police couldn't secure a conviction, and the case remains officially unsolved to this day. Robert Mueller died in 2006 in his 80s. The case remains open, its irony fueling a timeless warning about hidden dangers. Story 8. In the starry skies of New Hampshire's White Mountains, the archetype of gray aliens probing abductees began with a couple's eerie encounter. In 1961, interracial civil rights activists Barney and Betty Hill claimed a UFO pursued them, leading to lost time and, under hypnosis, memories of gray-skinned beings with large heads performing exams. Believers contend that Barney and Betty Hill were abducted by a flying saucer somewhere along New Hampshire's White Mountains. Aliens shoved a needle through Betty's navel and a metallic capsule inside Barney's rectum. Skeptics maintain it was all made up, pointing to sleep deprivation, a recent sci-fi episode, and societal stress from racism as factors. Their story, the first major abduction tale, shaped alien lore from the outer limits to modern UFO reports, blending personal turmoil with cosmic mystery. Story 9. Finally, the enduring conspiracy that Elvis Presley didn't really pass away, but instead faked his death in 1977 to escape the limelight. Where did this idea come from? It starts with a man by the name of Jimmy Ellis, a man who wanted to be a star and had been trying to make it in the music business for 15 years when Elvis died in 1977. Jimmy Ellis had a voice that was remarkably similar to Elvis Presley's. Following Elvis's death, a novel was published in 1978 called Orion, about a singer who faked his death. This novel, combined with Ellis's vocal likeness to Elvis, led to his record company, Sun Records, which had been acquired by Shelby Singleton, marketing Ellis as the masked singer Orion. Promotional materials for Orion hinted that he might be Elvis in disguise. While Orion, according to Wikipedia, had some success on the country charts, Ellis eventually revealed his identity in 1983, stating he would no longer perform as Orion. Though his career struggled under his own name, he later returned to performing as Orion in 1987. In essence, Jimmy Ellis's career as Orion capitalized on the Elvis is alive conspiracy theories that emerged after Presley's death. From historical feuds to cosmic curiosities, these stories remind us that the world is full of wonders and weirdness. Imagine this. It's a quiet evening in Istanbul, and a child sneaks a piece of gum, only to be scolded by their grandmother. Not for the sugar, but because chewing gum after dark might mean munching on the flesh of the dead. Across the globe in Seoul, a teenager hesitates to turn on their fan before bed, fearing it could steal their breath forever. These aren't just spooky bedtime stories, they're superstitions that millions treat as truth. Welcome to a journey through the world's strangest beliefs, where folklore shapes lives in ways you won't believe. Grab a seat, and let's dive into the eerie, fascinating world of cultural superstitions, where mirrors open demonic portals, and a single number can spell doom. Number 1. Let's start in Turkey, where a peculiar warning echoes through households. Never chew gum after sunset. The tale goes that gum transforms into the rotting flesh of the dead under the moonlight. Sounds like something out of a horror movie, right? Yet, this belief is so ingrained that parents use it to curb late-night snacking, and some adults still hesitate before popping a piece of gum after dark. The origins are murky, possibly tied to oral traditions meant to instill discipline or discourage noisy chewing at night. Despite no scientific basis, your body processes gum the same way, day or night. This superstition persists, a testament to the power of storytelling in Turkish culture. Now, let's travel to South Korea, where a modern myth has taken hold: fan death. Picture a sweltering summer night, and you're tempted to leave your fan running as you drift off. But in South Korea, many believe this could be a fatal mistake. The theory? A fan in a closed room can deplete oxygen, cause hypothermia, or even suffocate you. Fans sold in Korea often come with timers to shut off automatically, a nod to this widespread fear. The belief dates back to the 1920s, when early electric fans sparked warnings about nausea or asphyxiation. Some even speculate the government amplified the myth in the 1970s to curb energy use, though its roots are older. Scientists have debunked it. Fans simply move air, not destroy it, but Korean media still report fan death cases, keeping the myth alive. Number 3. In East Asia, a single number strikes fear: 4. In languages like Mandarin, Cantonese, Japanese, and Korean, 4 sounds eerily similar to death. This linguistic quirk, called tetraphobia, has real-world impacts. Hospitals and hotels skip the 4th floor, product lines avoid the number, and some people pay extra for phone numbers free of 4s. A 2001 study even found that Chinese and Japanese Americans had higher heart attack rates on the 4th day of each month, suggesting psychological stress from this belief might trigger real health effects, though later studies couldn't replicate this. From elevators labeled F to gift sets avoiding groups of 4, this superstition shapes daily life in profound ways. Number 4. Let's cross the Pacific to Mexico, where mirrors hold a spooky secret. Place 2 mirrors facing each other, and you might just open a portal for evil spirits, or even the devil himself. This belief, rooted in Mexican folklore, has influenced how homes are decorated, with some avoiding this mirror setup at all costs. People speak of strange sightings or unsettling energy, attributing them to these so-called portals. While it's pure superstition, the fear is so real that it shaped interior design trends, with some citing spiritual science to explain their unease. It's a haunting reminder of how folklore can influence even modern aesthetics. Number 5. In Vietnam, the Lunar New Year is a time of hope and renewal. But don't pick up a broom. Sweeping on this sacred day is believed to sweep away your family's good fortune. This tradition, common across many Asian cultures, ties cleaning to the loss of prosperity, urging people to keep homes tidy before the new year begins. It's a charming blend of practicality and mysticism, ensuring homes are spotless while preserving luck for the year ahead. Number 6. Now let's lighten the mood with a familiar ritual: blowing out birthday candles. In the US, about 28% of people believe this act holds real power. The rules? Make a wish, blow out all the candles in one breath, and keep it secret, or it won't come true. This isn't just child's play. Adults across all walks of life follow these steps with conviction, treating it as a metaphysical contract with the universe. Its origins may trace back to ancient traditions linking fire and wishes, but its persistence shows how even playful superstitions can feel profoundly real. Number 7. Back in South Korea, a red pen can spark panic. Writing a living person's name in red ink is seen as a death wish, a belief rooted in old funeral customs where red was used for the deceased. Today, schools and businesses enforce rules against red ink, and some report genuine anxiety when seeing their name in this color. It's evolved from folklore to a social norm, with people treating it as a tangible threat to their health. The power of this belief lies in its ability to blend tradition with modern life, making a simple pen choice feel life or death. Number 8. Ever had an itchy palm? In cultures from the Caribbean to Turkey, this sensation is a financial forecast. An itchy right palm means money's coming. An itchy left palm warns of loss. What's wild is how seriously some take it, making financial decisions based on a tingle. This belief, spanning continents, shows how humans seek patterns in the unpredictable, turning a random itch into a sign of wealth or warning. It's a quirky example of superstition feeling like fact. Number 9. In parts of Asia, trimming your nails after dark is more than bad luck. It's believed to shorten your parents' lives. This superstition likely started in pre-electricity days when poor lighting made nail clipping risky. But today, many still believe it has a direct, almost biological effect on their family's lifespan. Some even offer pseudoscientific explanations about energy flows, showing how old fears adapt to modern reasoning. It's a chilling blend of practicality and mysticism that keeps people reaching for clippers only in daylight. Number 10. Finally, let's talk about opals, the gemstones that spark fear unless you're born in October. This superstition surged after Sir Walter Scott's 1829 novel Anne of Geierstein, where an opal brings disaster to its owner. Some whisper that diamond giant De Beers fueled the myth to protect their market, nearly crashing the European opal trade in the 19th century. Even now, jewelers report customers avoiding opals, treating the superstition as gemological truth. It's a dazzling example of how a story can reshape an entire industry. From gum that turns gruesome to fans that supposedly steal your breath, these superstitions reveal a universal truth. Humans crave control in an unpredictable world. Whether it's avoiding the number 4 or blowing out candles with a secret wish, these beliefs weave stories that connect us to our ancestors and cultures. Which superstition surprised you the most? Do you have any quirky beliefs in your family? Drop them in the comments.
We often think of horror as something that lurks outside of us, in haunted houses, in shadowy strangers, in the unknown. But sometimes the most terrifying monsters don't come from the outside at all. They live inside the human mind. Tonight, we're exploring rare and unsettling psychological conditions that blur the line between science and nightmare. At the heart of this journey is Cotard's delusion, a disorder so disturbing that it makes people believe they are already dead. But as we'll see, it's far from the only case where the mind turns against itself. Number 1. Cotard's delusion, the walking corpse syndrome. Imagine waking up one day absolutely convinced that your body no longer contains blood or organs. You might look in the mirror and see yourself, but believe that what's looking back is nothing more than a corpse. This is Cotard's delusion, also chillingly called walking corpse syndrome. First described in the late 1800s by French neurologist Jules Cotard, this syndrome falls into what's known as nihilistic delusions. His most famous patient, referred to only as Mademoiselle X, insisted she had no brain, no chest, no stomach. She believed she couldn't die because she was already dead, and tragically, she starved herself to death after refusing to eat. Modern cases are still documented today. Patients sometimes sit in hospitals insisting their hearts don't beat, or that their skin is rotting. Some even ask to be buried. While Cotard's is not a recognized diagnosis on its own, it usually appears alongside severe depression, schizophrenia, or neurological conditions like dementia. Treatment isn't simple. Antidepressants, antipsychotics, even electroconvulsive therapy have been used. Sometimes patients recover. Other times, the delusion is so powerful that reality itself can't break through. Cotard's delusion is frightening because it attacks the very foundation of existence, the certainty that you are alive. Number 2. Capgras delusion, the imposter illusion. If Cotard's delusion tells you you don't exist, Capgras delusion convinces you that the people around you are not who they seem. Picture greeting your mother or your spouse, and suddenly, something feels wrong. They look the same. They sound the same. But your brain whispers, "This is an imposter." First reported in the 1920s, Capgras delusion is most often linked to schizophrenia or brain injury. Neurologists believe it stems from a disconnect between facial recognition and emotional familiarity. In other words, the brain recognizes the face visually, but the emotional response, that deep gut level, "this feels like my loved one," fails to register. The mind tries to make sense of this absence and invents a chilling explanation. That person has been replaced. In Capgras syndrome, you recognize someone, but you don't believe that they're the same person you love and trust. For families, it can be heartbreaking. Imagine your spouse insisting you're a fake, or your child refusing to believe you're really their parent. To them, it's not a fantasy. Number 3. Fregoli delusion. Everyone is the same person. Capgras has a strange twin called the Fregoli delusion. Instead of believing that loved ones have been replaced, patients with Fregoli are convinced that different people are actually one single individual in disguise. The disorder is named after an Italian stage actor, Leopoldo Fregoli, who was famous for his rapid costume changes. People with this delusion often believe they're being stalked by a persecutor who follows them everywhere, constantly changing faces. In addition to the central misidentification, individuals with Fregoli delusion may experience other symptoms. A common feature is the paranoid belief that the person in disguise is following or trying to harm them. Some individuals may also have difficulties with memory, cognitive processing, and recall of events. People with this condition may also cause visual or auditory hallucinations. Like Capgras, it often stems from psychiatric illness or brain damage, but it also carries darker risks: paranoia, aggression, and sometimes violent outbursts. Number 4. Alien hand syndrome, when your hand has a mind of its own. Now imagine something even stranger, your own body rebelling against you. In alien hand syndrome, one of your hands moves independently, as if controlled by another mind. There are real, documented cases of people whose rogue hand unbuttons shirts the other hand just buttoned, slaps them across the face, or even tries to strangle them. Neurologists trace this to damage in the brain's motor control systems, especially the corpus callosum, which links the brain's hemispheres. There are 5 types of alien hand syndrome: diagnostic dyspraxia, intermanual conflict, one of your hands acts independently from the other; alien hand sign, you believe that your hand isn't your own; anarchic hand syndrome, your hand performs a task that you have no control over; supernumerary hand, you feel like you have an extra limb; levitating hand, your hand raises on its own without your awareness. The exact cause of AHS is not fully understood, but it is believed to be related to damage or dysfunction in certain areas of the brain, including corpus callosum, which is the thick band of nerve fibers that connects the 2 hemispheres of the brain; the frontal lobe, the area of the brain responsible for planning, organizing, and controlling movements; and the parietal lobe, the area of the brain responsible for processing sensory information, including touch and body awareness. To the patient, it feels like possession. One woman described her left hand as a stranger attached to her body. Horror films couldn't invent something much creepier. Number 4. Foreign accent syndrome, losing your own voice. Sometimes, brain injury doesn't steal your limbs, it steals your voice. Foreign accent syndrome is an extremely rare condition where, after a stroke or trauma, a person suddenly speaks in what sounds like a completely different accent. One woman in the US woke from a migraine speaking with what sounded like a British accent, despite never having lived abroad. Another developed a heavy French accent after a car accident. The perception of a foreign accent is likely to be a case of pareidolia on the part of the listener. Nick Miller, professor of motor speech disorders at Newcastle University, has explained, "The notion that sufferers speak in a foreign language is something that is in the ear of the listener rather than the mouth of the speaker. It is simply that the rhythm and pronunciation of speech has changed." It's not that the brain suddenly learns a new language, but for the person experiencing it, it can feel like waking up in a stranger's body, unable to sound like themselves ever again. Number 5. Exploding head syndrome, the phantom bomb in the night. You're drifting to sleep when suddenly you hear it, a deafening bang, a gunshot, or the sound of an explosion right inside your skull. You jolt awake in terror, but the world is silent. This is exploding head syndrome. Despite the terrifying name, it doesn't actually cause pain or damage. It's considered a parasomnia, a sleep disorder that occurs during the transition between wake and sleep. The startling nature of the event often causes feelings of fear, anxiety, or distress. Some people also report seeing flashes of light, a phenomenon known as photopsia. Doctors believe it's caused by sudden bursts of neural activity as the brain shuts down for rest. But for the people who live with it, the experience is terrifying. Imagine believing you've just survived some type of explosion, only to realize nothing happened at all. Number 6. The Silent Twins, a tragic pact. Not all strange mental phenomena are purely neurological. Some grow out of human relationships. June and Jennifer Gibbons, known as the Silent Twins, grew up in Wales in the 1960s and 70s. They spoke to no one but each other, developing their own private language. Their bond was so intense that they mirrored each other's movements, wrote strange stories together, and even committed crimes as a pair. Eventually, they were institutionalized in a psychiatric hospital. In 1993, Jennifer died suddenly from heart inflammation at just 29 years old. Afterward, June seemed to awaken from their shared isolation and began speaking to others, as if the pact between them had finally ended. Their story remains one of the eeriest examples of how the human mind can fuse with another in ways both creative and destructive. Number 7. Folie à deux, madness shared by two. The Silent Twins hint at something bigger, the phenomenon known as folie à deux, or madness shared by two. This condition occurs when one person develops a delusion and passes it on to another close companion. The most chilling modern case is that of the Erickson twins in 2008, after bizarre behavior captured on camera in England, including throwing themselves into traffic, surviving, and continuing on foot. One of the sisters later killed a man under circumstances linked to their shared psychosis. It's an unsettling reminder of how tightly reality can bind or unravel between two people. Number 8. Sleep paralysis, the night hag. Perhaps the most universal of these conditions is sleep paralysis. You wake in the night fully conscious, but your body is frozen. A crushing weight presses on your chest, and in the corner of the room, something moves. For centuries, cultures have described this in supernatural terms: demons, witches, night hags. Science now tells us it happens when the body's natural paralysis during REM sleep lingers while the brain wakes up. Hallucinations fill in the blanks, creating visions of shadow people or creatures. Even with this explanation, those who experience it describe it as the most terrifying moment of their lives. Number 9. The Dancing Plague of 1518, mass madness. And finally, sometimes delusion spreads beyond the individual and takes over entire communities. In Strasbourg in 1518, dozens of people were struck by the uncontrollable urge to dance. They danced in the streets for days, unable to stop, until some collapsed and even died. Historians believe it was a case of mass psychogenic illness fueled by stress, famine, and religious fear, but to the people of the time, it must have looked like possession, or even the end of the world, from the woman convinced she was already dead, to the man who swore his wife had been replaced by an imposter, to entire crowds dancing themselves to death. These are not ghost stories. They are real conditions, real lives, and real tragedies that remind us how fragile the human mind can be. In the end, the scariest monsters aren't always outside our windows. Sometimes, they're inside our heads.
Have you ever wondered why you want what you want, not what you need, what you desire? That car, that brand, that soda, that lifestyle, it feels like your choice. But what if it isn't? What if, for more than a century, the world's most powerful industries have been studying your mind, not just what you think, but how you feel, and learning to pull the invisible strings of your subconscious? This is the hidden psychology of advertising. And it's changed who we are far more than most people realize. The birth of persuasion. It begins in the late 1800s. Factories are booming. Railroads stretch across continents. For the first time in history, products can be made faster than people can buy them. Companies needed a way to make people want things they didn't really need. And that's when advertising as we know it was born. Early ads were simple. Buy this soap, it cleanses better. But then psychology entered the picture. In the 1890s, a man named Walter Dill Scott, one of the first psychologists to study consumers, wrote that advertising should speak to suggestibility. He realized that people don't act rationally. They act on emotion, habit, and association. He said, "The consumer is not a creature of logic, but a creature of impulse." From that moment on, advertisers stopped selling products and started selling feelings. Then came the man who would forever change the game, Edward Bernays, nephew of Sigmund Freud, the father of psychoanalysis. Bernays realized something chilling. If Freud could explain what drives human behavior, those same ideas could be used to control it. In 1928, Bernays wrote a book called Propaganda. In it, he said something bold, that democratic societies are actually governed by an invisible government, made up of people who manipulate public opinion. Drawing on the insights of his uncle Sigmund, he developed an approach he dubbed the engineering of consent. He provided leaders the means to control and regiment the masses according to our will, without their knowing about it. To do so, it was necessary to appeal not to the rational part of the mind, but the unconscious message. He believed the masses were too irrational to make decisions on their own. So the smart few, marketers, politicians, corporations, should guide them. He called it the engineering of consent, and he proved it worked. When a tobacco company wanted to make it acceptable for women to smoke, Bernays didn't advertise cigarettes directly. Instead, he hired debutantes to march in the 1929 New York Easter Parade holding cigarettes, calling them torches of freedom. The media ran with it. The crowd cheered. Smoking became a symbol of liberation and equality, all engineered by an ad campaign. Another advertising campaign that Bernays was behind still affects most people to this day. In the 1920s, the Beechnut Packing Company wanted to sell more bacon, so it hired Edward Bernays. At the turn of the 20th century, a light breakfast was the norm in America. Most people had coffee and a roll, maybe some cereal. So Bernays asked his agency's doctor if a larger meal in the morning would be better for people's health. The doctor said yes, more energy at the start of the day is a good thing. Bernays then had the doctor write to 5,000 of his closest doctor friends, asking if they agreed. More than 14,500 wrote back saying they did. That gave Bernays a story to pitch. 4,500 physicians urge Americans to eat heavy breakfasts to improve their health, the newspaper headlines read. Many of them also referenced bacon and eggs as the perfect hearty breakfast. Today, 70% of bacon is eaten at breakfast. Bacon and eggs is an iconic American combo, all thanks to Edward Bernays. By this time, advertising was becoming more like psychological warfare. The television era. After World War II, the world was flooded with consumer goods, cars, appliances, fashion, toys. Television entered nearly every home, and advertisers now had a direct line to the human subconscious. Commercials weren't just about products anymore. They were about identity. Ads sold happiness, belonging, status. The new suburban dream wasn't complete without a shiny car and smiling family. Psychologists like Ernest Dichter, another Freudian thinker, coined the term motivation research. He studied what consumers secretly desired: sex, power, comfort, safety, and taught corporations how to link those primal urges to everyday products. Perfume wasn't just scent, it was seduction. A car wasn't just transport, it was masculinity on wheels. Even slogans were crafted to bypass logic. You deserve a break today, because you're worth it. These weren't selling features, they were selling validation. Subliminal influence and the subconscious revolution. In 1957, a market researcher named James Vicary claimed he'd flashed hidden messages during a movie: drink Coca-Cola and eat popcorn, so fast the audience couldn't consciously see them. Sales reportedly spiked. The public was horrified. Governments panicked. Although Vicary later admitted he exaggerated the results, the idea stuck, that advertisers could slip messages directly into our subconscious minds. The phrase subliminal advertising entered the cultural lexicon. Psychologists began studying how color, music, and repetition could manipulate mood without awareness. Bright reds and yellows triggered hunger. Soft blues built trust. Jingles embedded brand names in our memory through sheer repetition. By the 1960s, advertisers were no longer just selling to you, they were designing your perception of reality. By the 1970s, consumer culture was in full bloom. Brands had personalities. Commercials had heartstrings. Coca-Cola wasn't selling soda, it was selling togetherness. Nike wasn't selling shoes, it was selling individual triumph. And the line between culture and commerce began to blur. Advertising started shaping who we wanted to be. Teenagers learned what cool meant from Pepsi commercials. Adults learned what success looked like from luxury car ads. Advertising had become our mythology, the stories we told about ourselves. During the 1980s and 90s, with the rise of cable TV and global media, these narratives went worldwide. Everywhere you looked, there was a message telling you how to live, what to buy, and who to become. By now, the subconscious wasn't just being targeted, it was being programmed. The digital takeover. Then the internet changed everything. Suddenly, advertisers didn't have to guess who you were. They could track you. Every click, every search, every like became psychological data. A detailed map of your preferences, fears, desires, and weaknesses. The advertising world no longer spoke to the masses, it spoke to you. Algorithms learned what colors you respond to, what phrases make you pause, even what time of day you're most likely to buy. What Bernays dreamed of in the 1920s, invisible manipulation through psychology, became automated, personalized, and global. Your subconscious wasn't just being influenced by ads, it was being monitored and monetized. And the creepiest part? You often don't even realize when you're being advertised to. On social media, the line between content and marketing has completely vanished. That relatable influencer talking about her favorite product, that viral meme, that TikTok trend, they might all be ads, carefully engineered to feel authentic. The most powerful advertising today doesn't look like advertising at all. Today, we live inside the machine. Advertising is no longer a separate thing we encounter. It's woven into the very fabric of our digital lives. Psychologists now speak of the attention economy. Your focus is the product being sold. Social media platforms use the same psychological tricks as classic advertisers, but amplified by data, speed, and constant feedback loops. Infinite scroll exploits variable reward schedules, the same mechanism that keeps gamblers hooked. Notifications trigger dopamine hits. Colors and sounds are tested endlessly to keep you engaged and exposed to more ads. In other words, advertising doesn't just sell products anymore. It sells you, your data, your attention, your time. We've gone from billboards on highways to billboards in our minds. What it's done to us. After more than a century of psychological advertising, something profound has changed in human behavior. We no longer ask, "Do I want this?" We ask, "Should I want this?" Our sense of identity is often built from the brands we consume. We express ourselves through logos, gadgets, styles, all designed by corporations that study human desire like a science. Even our emotions are marketed. Happiness has a brand. Rebellion has a brand. Individuality has a brand. And the most effective advertising doesn't feel manipulative. It feels personal, like it was made just for you. Because, in a way, it was. The hidden cost. What's the cost of living in a world that constantly manipulates the subconscious? Psychologists warn that it creates chronic dissatisfaction, a feeling that something is always missing, and that buying something will fix it. Advertising doesn't just sell you a product, it sells you anxiety. Then it sells you the cure. It teaches us to look outward for validation instead of inward for fulfillment. And it subtly rewires how we define happiness, success, and even love. When you think about it, it's the longest-running social experiment in human history, one that most of us never agreed to participate in. Awareness is power, but there is still hope. Once you see how it works, you start to break the spell. You begin noticing patterns, the repetition, the emotional triggers, the artificial scarcity, the appeal to belonging. You start asking questions. Why do I want this? Who benefits if I buy it? Would I still want it if no one else could see me have it? And when you do that, you start reclaiming a small piece of freedom. The freedom to choose what actually matters to you. Advertising isn't going away. It's evolving. But awareness is the antidote to manipulation. From the printed posters of the 1800s to the AI-driven feeds of today, the art of persuasion has quietly shaped the modern world. It's influenced our politics, our self-image, our desires, and our dreams. It's built empires, toppled taboos, and turned psychology into profit. Edward Bernays once said, "The conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society." Whether you agree with him or not, one thing is certain. The invisible hand he described is still there, still shaping what we buy, what we believe, and sometimes even who we are. So the next time an ad makes you feel something, pause. Ask yourself, whose voice is it really? And more importantly, who's listening?
Psychology experiments have helped unravel the mysteries of human behavior, but sometimes, in the quest for knowledge, ethical lines have been crossed. These studies may have expanded our understanding of the mind, but they also inflicted emotional, physical, or psychological harm on their subjects. Buckle up, because these stories are as disturbing as they are fascinating. 10. The Milgram Experiment, 1961. In 1961, psychologist Stanley Milgram sought to understand obedience to authority following the Holocaust. Would ordinary people commit harmful acts simply because an authority figure told them to? Participants were assigned the role of teacher, while the learner was a Confederate, an actor in on the experiment. The teacher and learner were placed in separate rooms. The teacher was instructed to administer increasingly powerful electric shocks to the learner each time they answered a question incorrectly. Unbeknownst to the teacher, no real shocks were delivered. However, the learner acted as though they were in excruciating pain, screaming and begging for the experiment to stop. Despite this, many participants continued to administer shocks when prompted by the experimenter, who insisted they must proceed. Findings and fallout. The results were shocking. 65% of participants delivered what they believed to be lethal shocks. The study revealed the power of authority, but was heavily criticized for the emotional trauma it inflicted on participants. 9. The Little Albert Experiment, 1920. In 1920, behaviorist John B. Watson wanted to prove that fear could be conditioned into humans. His subject? An unsuspecting 8-month-old baby named Albert. Albert was introduced to various objects, including a white rat, a rabbit, and a dog. Initially, he showed no fear. Then, every time Albert reached for the white rat, Watson created a loud noise by striking a metal bar behind the child's head. The noise terrified Albert. Eventually, Albert began to associate the rat with the noise. He not only feared the rat, but also other furry objects, like rabbits and even Santa Claus's beard. While Watson proved his theory, the experiment likely traumatized Albert. Worse still, no follow-up was conducted to reverse the fear responses. 8. The Stanford Prison Experiment, 1971. Psychologist Philip Zimbardo conducted this infamous study to explore the psychological effects of perceived power dynamics between prisoners and guards. Zimbardo recruited 24 college students and randomly assigned them roles as either guards or prisoners in a mock prison set up in Stanford University's psychology department. Guards were given uniforms, sunglasses, and batons, while prisoners were issued smocks and assigned identification numbers. Over just 6 days, the guards began displaying abusive and sadistic behavior. They forced prisoners to perform humiliating acts, deprived them of basic needs, and locked them in small, dark closets. Zimbardo himself, acting as the prison superintendent, became so immersed in the role that he failed to recognize the severity of the abuse. The experiment, intended to last 2 weeks, was cut short due to psychological breakdowns among the participants. It highlighted the dangers of unchecked power, but was widely condemned for its lack of oversight and ethical consideration. 7. The Monkey Drug Trials, 1969. In 1969, researchers at the University of Michigan conducted a chilling study to explore drug addiction. Instead of human subjects, they used monkeys. Monkeys were trained to self-administer drugs, including cocaine, morphine, LSD, and amphetamines. Once hooked, the animals were left to their own devices. Many of the monkeys began displaying erratic behavior, tearing out their fur, breaking their limbs, and even starving themselves in favor of drug consumption. While the study revealed how addictive substances can override basic survival instincts, it was widely condemned for its extreme cruelty. The findings were also criticized for their limited applicability to humans. 6. The Bobo Doll Experiment, 1961-1963. Albert Bandura wanted to prove that aggression could be learned through observation. He conducted a series of studies using children and an inflatable clown doll known as Bobo. Bandura showed groups of children different scenarios. One group watched an adult physically and verbally abuse the Bobo doll, while another group watched the adult play peacefully. When left alone with the doll, children who observed aggression imitated it, punching and kicking the doll with alarming ferocity. Bandura demonstrated the power of observational learning, but critics argued that exposing children to violent behavior, even in a controlled setting, could have long-term consequences on their development. 5. Homosexual aversion therapy, 1967. This controversial method was used to cure homosexuality, reflecting the prejudice of the time. In the UK, researchers at Crumpsall Hospital subjected gay men to electric shocks while showing them images of men. The participants were told to keep looking at the images, but after 8 seconds, they were shocked. Images of women were shown as reward stimuli with no punishment. While some participants claimed to experience changes, the American Psychological Association later declared such therapies ineffective and harmful. The method left many subjects emotionally scarred. 4. The Third Wave, 1967. High school teacher Ron Jones devised this social experiment to demonstrate how fascism could take hold. Jones implemented strict rules in his classroom, emphasizing discipline, unity, and conformity. Over 5 days, the students adopted authoritarian behaviors, created a logo, and enforced obedience. By the third day, the movement had spread beyond the classroom. Students came up with their own insignia and adopted a Nazi-like salute. They were taught to firmly obey Jones's commands and become anti-democratic to the core, even informing on one another. Jones's new ideology was dubbed the Third Wave and spread like wildfire. By the fourth day, the teacher was concerned that the movement he had unleashed was getting out of hand. He brought the experiment to a halt. On the fifth day, he told the students that they had invoked a similar feeling of supremacy to that of the German people under the Nazi regime. Thankfully, there were no repercussions. Fearing he had gone too far, Jones ended the experiment by showing the students how easily they had succumbed to authoritarian control, drawing parallels to Nazi Germany. 3. UCLA Schizophrenia Medication Experiment, 1983-1994. This long-term study investigated the relapse patterns of schizophrenia by discontinuing patients' medications. To achieve this, they had schizophrenics, from a group of hundreds involved in the program, taken off their medication. Such medication is not without its nasty side effect. The research may hold important findings about the condition. Nevertheless, the experiment has been criticized for not sufficiently protecting the patients in the event of schizophrenic symptoms returning, nor did it clearly determine the point at which the patients should be treated again. What is more, this had tragic consequences in 1991 when former program participant Antonio Lamadrid ended his time on Earth by jumping from 9 floors up, despite having been open about his state of mind and supposedly under the study's watch. Ethical concerns. Critics argued that the researchers prioritized data over patient well-being, failing to intervene when symptoms worsened. 2. The Monster Study, 1939. Dr. Wendell Johnson tested the impact of positive and negative reinforcement on children's speech development. 22 orphaned children, 10 of whom had issues with stuttering, were put into 2 groups, each containing a mix of those with and without speech disorders. One of the 2 groups was given positive, encouraging feedback about their verbal communication, while the other was utterly disparaged for their, sometimes non-existent, speech problems. The findings were recorded. This 6-month study had a major impact on the human subjects. It even had impact on those who had no prior talking difficulties, making some insecure and withdrawn. In 2007, half a dozen of the former subjects were given a large payout by the state of Iowa for what they had endured, with the claimants reporting lifelong psychological and emotional scars. Results: the negatively reinforced group developed speech issues and low self-esteem, with effects lasting well into adulthood. 1. The David Reimer case, 1967-1977. After a botched circumcision procedure left Reimer with disfiguring genital damage at 6 months old, his parents took him to be seen by John Money. Money was a professor of medical psychology and pediatrics who advocated the theory of gender neutrality. He argued that gender identity is first and foremost learned socially from a young age. Money suggested that although Reiner's penis could not be repaired, he could and should undergo sex reassignment surgery and be raised as a female. In 1967, Reimer began the treatment that would turn him into Brenda. However, despite further visits to Money over the next 10 years, Reimer was never really able to identify himself as female and lived as a male from the age of 14. He would go on to have treatment to undo the sex reassignment, but the ongoing experiment had prompted extreme depression in him, an underlying factor that contributed to him ending his time on Earth in 2004. John Money, meanwhile, was mired in controversy. These experiments highlight the dark side of psychological research. While they provided groundbreaking insights, they also serve as cautionary tales about the importance of ethics in science. Let us learn from these mistakes and ensure that no pursuit of knowledge ever comes at the expense of human dignity again.
Imagine this. You are sitting alone, maybe late at night, and suddenly a single question enters your mind. A question so strange, so unsettling, that it changes the way you look at yourself, your memories, and even reality itself. That is the power of a thought experiment. These mental puzzles have been used by scientists, philosophers, and storytellers for centuries to test the limits of human understanding. Today, we are diving into some of the most fascinating and disturbing thought experiments ever created. Experiments that challenge your identity, your free will, and even the very fabric of the universe you think you live in. So, get comfortable, because after this video, you may not look at reality the same way again. Let's begin. One, the ship of Theseus. Our first stop is ancient Greece. Imagine a massive wooden ship sailing across the sea. Over time, planks begin to rot. Ropes fray, sails tear one by one. Every single piece of that ship is replaced with brand new parts until not a shred of the original remains. Here is the question: is it still the same ship? Now push it even further. Imagine someone saved all the old planks and rebuilt a separate ship using only those original parts. Which one is the real ship of Theseus? The brand new one that maintained its continuity through time, or the reconstructed one built from the authentic material? This experiment forces us to ask something uncomfortable. When your own cells regenerate, when your memories change, when your personality evolves, are you still the same person you were 10 years ago? And if not, then who are you right now? Two, the experience machine. Now let's travel to a world imagined by philosopher Robert Nozick. It begins with a question so seductive it almost feels dangerous. If you could plug your brain into a machine that gives you a perfect life, would you do it? This machine can simulate anything: wealth, fame, romance, success. You could live your dream life with zero pain, zero suffering, and zero disappointment. Everything you ever wanted becomes your reality. But here's the catch: none of it is real. You would be floating in a tank, filled with false memories, false victories, and false love. You would never know the truth, but outside the machine, your real life would simply stop. So ask yourself, do you choose a happy illusion or a painful reality? Nozick argued that most people crave authenticity even if the truth hurts. But the question remains, which one would you choose? The Chinese room. Next is one of the most chilling experiments ever created about artificial intelligence. Imagine a man trapped in a room. He does not understand Chinese at all, not a single word. But inside the room he has a giant book. The book contains perfect instructions for responding to Chinese characters. If someone slides a question under the door in Chinese, the man looks up the symbols in the book, copies the corresponding reply, and hands it back. To the outside world, it looks like he is fluent. But inside the room, he understands nothing. He is merely following instructions. This is the question. If a computer follows rules to generate perfect language, does it actually understand anything? Or is it just a more complex version of the man in the room? And if AI can speak, translate, joke, comfort, and create, does that mean it thinks? Or are we giving meaning to something that might be empty on the inside? Can consciousness really be faked? 4. The brain in a vat. Now prepare yourself, because this one gets eerie fast. Picture a scientist with questionable motives. He removes your brain from your body and places it in a tank filled with nutrients to keep it alive. Electrodes feed signals into the brain that perfectly simulate reality. Everything you see, hear, taste, and feel is produced by a computer. Here is the scary part. If this were true, you would have no way to know. Every sensation, every memory, everything you believe, it could all be part of a simulation created by someone else. You could be living your entire life inside a digital dream with no physical body at all. This experiment asks a terrifying question. How do you know anything is real? And is there any way to escape a world that feels completely authentic but exists only inside your mind? 5. The trolley problem. This is one of the most morally disturbing scenarios of all time. You are standing beside a train track. A runaway trolley is speeding toward 5 unsuspecting people. You can pull a lever to divert the trolley onto another track. But that second track has one person on it. So the question is simple but horrifying. Do you pull the lever and actively cause one death to save 5? Or do you do nothing and allow 5 to die when you could have stopped it? Most people say they would pull the lever. But then the experiment changes. Imagine you are on a bridge above the track. Next to you is a very large man. If you push him off the bridge, his body will stop the trolley and save the 5 people below. But he will die. Now almost everyone refuses to push him. Both actions save 5 and kill 1. But one feels colder, harder, and more personal. The experiment exposes the strange inconsistencies in human morality. Are we logical creatures? Or emotional ones? Maybe both. 6. The simulation hypothesis. Now let's go cosmic. This thought experiment suggests that future civilizations might run simulated universes, complete with conscious beings inside them. If that is possible, then statistically it may be more likely that you are in a simulation right now than in the real physical universe. Some scientists even believe the universe shows signs of digital structure, pixelation, limits on information, and strange numerical patterns in physical laws. If the universe is a simulation, then who built it? Why was it created, and what happens when the simulation ends? 7. The Fermi Paradox. Our final experiment is one of the most unsettling. Look up at the sky. Trillions of stars, countless planets. Statistically, the universe should be overflowing with intelligent life. Yet here we are, completely alone. This is the paradox. If the universe is so big and life should be everywhere, then where is everyone? Some theories say that intelligent life destroys itself before spreading. Others say that advanced civilizations hide because something dangerous is out there. Even darker theories suggest that Earth is part of a cosmic experiment and we are intentionally isolated. The silence of the universe might mean nothing, or it might mean everything. Conclusion. Thought experiments are more than clever questions. They are mirrors that reflect uncomfortable truths about who we are and what we believe. They challenge our sense of reality, morality, identity, and existence itself. And the deeper you think about them, the more they change you. In the last few years, the internet has become a haunted house. Not in the classic way with footsteps on the stairs, but with rumors that slip between code and culture. Tonight, we are going to walk through 8 modern conspiracy theories that feel new, eerie, and very online. I am not endorsing any of them. I am showing you what people believe, where the stories came from, and what evidence exists on the other side. Number 1. The dead internet theory. Our first stop is the dead internet theory. It claims the internet quietly died around 2016. According to believers, most posts you see are no longer written by people. They say it is bots, scripts, and AI spam, boosted by algorithms that keep real humans numb and easy to steer. In 2025, the idea roared back as AI-generated slop flooded feeds, and even skeptical outlets admitted that although the big claim is exaggerated, the sheer volume of automated junk can feel suffocating. The creepiness here is not ghosts. It is the suspicion that you are talking to no one at all. If the internet can feel unreal, what about reality itself? Number 2. CERN, portals, and the Mandela effect. Another modern cluster of theories links CERN's Large Hadron Collider to the Mandela effect. The story goes like this. CERN smashes particles, reality wobbles, collective memories shift. People swear they remember movie quotes differently or logos that never existed. Some videos even claim CERN opened a portal. Fact-checkers traced viral clips to other events and debunked satanic ceremony claims, while psychologists point to false memory, pattern seeking, and the power of suggestion as the more likely cause. The result is still unsettling. When millions remember the same thing wrong, it feels like a glitch. Number 3. Project Bluebeam 2.0. Project Bluebeam is an older theory with a very modern makeover. The updated claim says deepfake audio, holograms, drones, and sky projections could fake an apocalyptic event or an alien arrival in order to push a new global order. When swarms of unexplained drones show up over cities, Bluebeam trends again. Skeptics argue there is zero evidence of a coordinated plan, only the human habit of weaving disparate events into a single dramatic narrative. Still, in an era of synthetic media, the idea that the sky itself could be staged lands differently than it did in the 1990s. Number 4. The Lost Empire of Tartaria. One of the strangest modern theories online is the story of Tartaria, a supposed global civilization erased from history. Believers claim that sometime in the 1800s, a worldwide cataclysm known as the Mud Flood buried entire cities in a single event, leaving only the rooftops and upper floors above ground. Supporters say this lost empire had advanced technology, even free energy systems, and that the ornate 19th century buildings we see today were actually Tartarian structures that survived the disaster. They point to old maps labeled Tartary, buried windows, and star-shaped forts as clues that a massive cover-up took place. According to the theory, governments rewrote history, redated architecture, and erased evidence of a civilization that once spanned continents, a society of giants and engineers far ahead of their time. Critics counter that Tartary was simply an old geographical term, and that the so-called mud flood evidence is just normal city development, basements, or erosion over time. Still, the mystery persists because it touches something universal, the idea that humanity might have risen before, fallen, and been buried, literally beneath our feet. Number 5. Loeb, the woman in the machine. In 2022, an AI artist discovered a disturbing face that surfaced again and again across generations of images. Internet lore named her Loeb. The eerie part was not just her appearance. It was the sense that a statistical space of pixels could produce a recurring ghost. Tech writers and museums covered the phenomenon. Whether Loeb is a quirk of prompts or something deeper about how models cluster visual ideas, she embodies a new kind of modern myth. The ghost is not in a house. It is in the latent space. Number 6. Birds aren't real. Next is a movement that looks like a conspiracy from far away and satire up close. Birds Aren't Real argues that the US government replaced birds with surveillance drones. The slogans are outrageous. The rallies are real. The founders have repeatedly said it is a parody designed to inoculate people against disinformation by showing how easily a movement can be manufactured. It works because it mirrors the tone of online conspiracy culture perfectly, which makes some viewers forget it's a joke. Number 7. NPCs, soulless people, and simulation talk. From gaming culture came the NPC meme. On the surface, it is a joke about people who seem to repeat scripted lines. In fringe corners, it turns into something darker, a claim that some humans are empty background characters. This merges with simulation talk and videos claiming to catch NPCs glitching in public. There is no science behind the soulless person idea. It spreads because it is a simple story that explains complex behavior. When strangers do not act like we expect, calling them NPCs is easier than admitting how little we know about other minds. Number 8. Havana Syndrome and Directed Energy. Finally, a modern mystery with geopolitical shadows. Since 2016, American officials reported sudden headaches, vertigo, cognitive fog, and strange sounds. Theories blame microwave or acoustic weapons. Intelligence reviews have mostly found no conclusive foreign culprit, but investigative collaborations have pointed at a possible Russian unit while others remain skeptical. The uncertainty fuels more speculation. In a media environment of contested facts, a medical mystery becomes a magnet for every fearful narrative we carry about invisible weapons and invisible wars. So what do these 8 stories share? They thrive where technology changes faster than our instincts. They blend fragments of truth with fear and clever storytelling. And they spread because the internet rewards emotion more than nuance. The way out is not to scoff at belief, but to learn how belief is built. Ask where a claim began, read the skeptical side, Sit with the discomfort of not knowing for sure. The modern haunted house is not just online. It is our own pattern, hungry minds.
Imagine waking up one morning as yourself, same personality, same thoughts, same emotions, but by the end of the day, you're a completely different person. Not because of some life-changing event, not because of trauma or grief, but because a massive iron rod has just shot through your skull, and somehow you're still alive. This isn't fiction. This is the real-life story of Phineas Gage, the man who survived the impossible, and in doing so, changed the course of neuroscience forever. The accident that should have been fatal. It was September 13th, 1848. Gage was a 25-year-old railroad foreman in Cavendish, Vermont, known for being hardworking, responsible, and well-liked by his crew. His job that day was routine, preparing a blasting hole in solid rock by packing it with gunpowder and using a tamping iron, a long, heavy metal rod, to compact the charge. But something went wrong. As Gage leaned forward, the tamping iron struck the rock and sparked. The gunpowder ignited prematurely, turning the 312-foot-long, 13-pound rod into a missile. It entered just below his left cheekbone, passed behind his left eye, and exited through the top of his skull. The force was so intense that the rod landed nearly 80 feet away, covered in brain matter. By all logic, Gage should have died instantly, but instead, he didn't just survive. He remained fully awake, walked with minimal assistance, and, shockingly, was even able to talk coherently. Witnesses were horrified. They could literally see inside his skull. When Dr. John Harlow arrived, he found Gage sitting up, answering questions. But there was something off. Harlow noted that while Gage was aware and talking, he had a vacant, almost eerie demeanor. Over the next few weeks, his wounds healed. His brain, however, was another story. The man who was no longer himself. Before the accident, Gage was known as polite, hardworking, and dependable, but afterward, he became impulsive, short-tempered, and unreliable. He cursed excessively, ignored responsibilities, and seemed unable to control his emotions. His friends and family barely recognized him. Dr. Harlow noted that Gage had no restraint and was no longer Gage. It was as if his personality had been rewritten. The birth of modern neuroscience. At the time, scientists had no clear understanding of how brain damage could affect personality. But Gage's case proved something groundbreaking. Different parts of the brain control different aspects of who we are. Specifically, Gage had suffered massive damage to his prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for decision-making, impulse control, and personality. This discovery laid the foundation for what we now call modern neuroscience and helped shape treatments for brain injuries, mental disorders, and even the development of lobotomy procedures decades later. Gage's mysterious final years. Despite his personality changes, Gage lived for 12 more years. He traveled, worked odd jobs, and even appeared in circus sideshows as the man with the hole in his head. Eventually, his health declined, and he suffered from seizures, leading to his death in 1860. After his passing, his skull and the infamous tamping iron were preserved for scientific study. Today, they remain on display at Harvard Medical School, a lasting reminder of one of the strangest medical cases in history. Phineas Gage didn't just survive an impossible injury. His bizarre accident revealed something profound about the human brain. The idea that who we are isn't just in our hearts, but in the structure of our minds. And that changed everything.
Why does the brain sometimes misfire? Tonight we will explore the hidden world of brain glitches. These are brief moments when the mind slips out of its normal rhythm and shows us something that feels unreal. Number 1. Let's begin with one of the most mysterious glitches of all: déjà vu. That eerie sense that you are replaying a moment in real time. Researchers believe déjà vu happens when two different memory pathways activate at the same time. One pathway is responsible for recognizing something familiar. The other pathway is responsible for creating new memories. When these become unsynchronized by just a fraction of a second, the brain mistakes new information as something it has already lived. It creates the illusion of a memory that does not actually exist. In other words, your brain hits the replay button on something that is happening for the first time. But déjà vu has some stranger theories attached to it as well. Some scientists have proposed it may occur when the brain quickly corrects a tiny processing delay between what the eyes see and what the mind registers. Others believe it may be the byproduct of a dream you do not remember, leaving you with a subtle feeling of familiarity. No matter the cause, déjà vu has long fascinated neuroscientists because it is one of the few glitches that feels like a window into a different timeline. Number 2. Another common glitch is called hypnic jerks. This is the sudden feeling of falling when you are drifting off to sleep. One moment you are sinking into the bed, and the next, your entire body jolts awake. It feels involuntary, almost like your brain has hit a panic switch. Researchers believe this happens because the body is transitioning from wakefulness to sleep faster than the brain expects. As your muscles relax, the brain mistakes that relaxation for a loss of balance and sends an emergency signal to the body. This creates a quick muscle spasm meant to keep you from hitting the ground. It is a leftover survival mechanism from a time when humans slept in trees or elevated places where falling could have been deadly. There is a similar glitch that happens while you are wide awake. It is the sensation that you are suddenly floating or sinking, even though you are perfectly still. This phenomenon is connected to the vestibular system inside the inner ear. This tiny structure controls balance and spatial orientation. When the signals from the inner ear temporarily misalign with signals from the eyes, the brain creates a brief illusion of movement that is not really happening. It is a reminder that our sense of reality is constantly stitched together by the brain and can unravel for just a second without warning. Number 3. Another glitch that often surprises people is called the phantom phone vibration. You may feel your phone buzz even when it has not. This happens because the brain is extremely good at pattern detection. If you receive frequent notifications, the brain becomes so tuned to the sensation that it sometimes predicts it before it happens. This prediction can be so convincing that you physically feel it. It is a modern example of how easy it is for the brain to create a sensation based on expectation, not reality. Number 4. One of the strangest glitches occurs during moments of intense stress or fear. Some people report that the world suddenly slows down around them. Time seems to stretch. Every detail becomes sharp and clear. Scientists believe this is caused by a burst of adrenaline that heightens the brain's memory system. While it may feel like time is slowing, what is really happening is that your brain is recording more information than usual. This creates the illusion that the moment lasted longer than it actually did. Number 5. There is also the phenomenon of the name on the tip of your tongue. You know exactly what you want to say, but the word refuses to come out. This is called retrieval failure. The brain stores information in networks, and sometimes those networks do not activate fully. The word is still in your memory, but the connection to it is temporarily blocked. The brain knows the answer is there, so it creates a feeling of closeness, which is where the frustrating sensation comes from. Number 6. Another glitch is called pareidolia. This is when the brain sees familiar shapes, especially faces, in random patterns. For example, seeing a face in a cloud or a figure in the corner of your room in low light. The brain is wired to detect faces for survival, so it will prioritize face recognition even when none exist. This glitch can be the source of ghost sightings, strange photos, and those eerie moments when you feel like something is looking back at you from the darkness. Number 7. There is one brain glitch that stands above the rest in both terror and mystery. It is an experience so vivid and so overwhelming that entire cultures have written myths, legends, and dark folklore about it. It is called sleep paralysis. If you have ever gone through it, you already know how frightening it feels. You wake up, or at least you think you do, and you immediately sense that something is wrong. You can see the room. You can hear the quiet around you. You can feel the air on your skin. But when you try to move, nothing happens. You are trapped inside your own body. Your chest feels heavy, your breathing feels shallow, and your mind begins to race. Then comes the part that makes sleep paralysis so unforgettable. The hallucinations. Some people see dark figures standing at the foot of the bed. Others feel a presence sitting on their chest. Some hear footsteps, whispering, or strange mechanical humming. Some people even see shadowy forms crawling along the ceiling or hovering by the door. These visions feel real because, in a sense, the brain is still dreaming while you are awake. For thousands of years, humans have tried to explain this terrifying experience. Ancient Japanese folklore described a spirit called the Kanashibari, a ghost that immobilizes people in their sleep. In parts of Scandinavia, the phenomenon was believed to be caused by a nightmare spirit riding on a sleeper's chest. In Newfoundland, it was called the Old Hag, an entity said to sit on victims and drain their energy. And in many cultures around the world, sleep paralysis has been linked to demons, witches, or supernatural visitors. These stories spread because the experience is so intense that it feels impossible to explain any other way. But science paints a very different picture. Sleep paralysis happens during the transition between waking and dreaming. When we enter the REM stage of sleep, the body naturally shuts down voluntary muscle movement. This prevents us from acting out our dreams and hurting ourselves. Most of the time, the brain wakes the body and mind at the same moment. But sometimes the brain wakes up too early and the body does not follow. You become aware before the muscle control returns, leaving you conscious but frozen. The hallucinations happen for the same reason. During REM sleep, the brain creates vivid dream imagery. When you wake up in the middle of this cycle, your brain continues generating dreamlike visuals even though your eyes are open. Your brain is trying to merge two realities at once, and the result is the terrifying blend of waking and dreaming known as sleep paralysis. Most episodes last less than a minute, although they can feel much longer. They are not dangerous, but they can be deeply unsettling. Sleep paralysis shows us something rare. It reveals what happens when the systems of the brain do not turn on in the correct order, when consciousness arrives before the body is ready. What feels like a paranormal encounter is actually the mind caught between worlds, struggling to reconnect the physical and the psychological. It is one of the clearest reminders that the brain is capable of creating entire experiences on its own. And when it slips, even for a moment, it can create a nightmare that feels real long after it ends. All of these glitches reveal something important. The brain is powerful, but it is not perfect. It processes billions of signals every second, and sometimes those signals overlap, collide, or arrive too late. When that happens, the mind fills in the gaps with guesses, predictions, and shortcuts. These guesses can feel supernatural, frightening, or strangely familiar. But in truth, they are glimpses into the hidden mechanics of consciousness. Moments when the brain pulls back the curtain and shows us how fragile perception really is. So the next time you feel a sudden jolt before falling asleep, or you catch a flicker of recognition in a moment you swear you have lived before, remember this. Your brain is not malfunctioning, it is doing its best to interpret the world, even when the signals do not line up. These glitches are not flaws. They are clues that the mind is far more complex than we ever imagined. And in those brief seconds when reality bends, twists, or repeats itself, we get a rare look at the mysterious machine inside our skull. A machine that sometimes reveals more than it intends. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more weird, wild stories. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and as always, stay weird.